Welcome back to HudRod Automotive, where you join us in London to have a review of this e-Golf. We're in the perfect place for it. We're in the city. I'm going to take you around Hyde Park and some other places to see what an electric car is like around London. If you do like this video, please hit like and subscribe. We've got plenty of more content coming, and if you do like this car, it is currently available at Harrington's of Fulham, so do go check them out. Alright, so we're here in Hyde Park to take this e-Golf for a bit of a spin. And the one thing you'll notice straight away as you drive away is just how easy that is to drive. The steering wheel, so many cars I've driven like this, they just have such nice powered steering, which is really nice, makes it really nice and easy. It's a Golf, and they've tried to keep it so much like a Golf. I mean, they've even got a so-called rev counter, but it's just like the percent of power that you're using and this sort of stuff. So they've really tried to make it normal, but I don't think that's necessarily needed, but it certainly works. And to some people, that might sound a little bit boring, but the reason why is because they are just such a good base of a car. What VW have done, especially with this later generation, the modern day standards that it's up to, they are just such good cars to do everything that you need to do on a daily basis. But how does this car differentiate? Because obviously it's electric, so it obviously has its own little tweaks into how it is driven and how you have to drive it and how it works, how it handles. And overall so far, it seems really good. Now, we're in the place that it wants to be, which is in, for instance, London or a city, because your range isn't that good. You're on a full charge, you're only going to get somewhere between 120 and 140 miles, depending on how you drive it. So you're really going to keep this one in the city. So as we potter about, we'll get a little bit more of a feel for it. But so far, it is feeling really nice, and you can't really tell that it's anything different. So when you first get in this car, it's not like a petrol car, nothing much happens. You turn the key and, well, that's it. Nothing really happens. What Golf, or what VW have done with this Golf is try to make it just like a Golf. So literally, you have the same, prindle as you always have, and you just put it in, drive, and then that's literally it. But obviously, because it's electric, there's no sound, so you do have to get a little bit used to that. But overall, it's such a nice place to be in. And sure, it's not the absolute most modern tech and everything, or especially in terms of its design, but you still have this massive screen where you got a big nav, you got CarPlay on it, you still got all your controls down here, auto hold, which I know is on a lot of modern cars now, but that is a really good luxury feature. All around nice steering wheel, and that's pretty much it for the interior. Nothing special, but very good. So we said that this car is pretty much a Golf. So how are the specs fit? Well, it's got 133 horsepower, which when you think of it is fairly normal for a standard car, even like a 1.82 litre. So from the get-go, it's not really anything different at all. And it does have a 0 to 60 of about 9 seconds, which is pretty good. I mean, you don't need much more than that, but the main thing with a car like this is the instant power and instant torque that you get when you're pulling away. And I mean, we're in the eco mode at the moment, just because we want to be careful with the range, but that's plenty. I mean, especially around town when the speed limit's 20-30 mile an hour, that's all you need to worry about. So you don't need to care about really those specs or the 0 to 60 numbers and that sort of thing, because you're not going to be driving the car like that, and you have to get used to it being a little bit different to a normal petrol or diesel car as well, because you do get that instant torque and you don't need to use all of its capabilities. You don't have to rev it out, you don't have to let the turbo come on or anything of that. You just have to put your foot on the throttle, and before you know it, you're doing the speed limit, and that's pretty much what you have to do, which just shows you that it's not all about the peak numbers, it's about where it's usable in the RPM range. One thing about electric cars is that we don't know how long they're going to last yet, because for the mass market at least, they've only really been around for about 10 years. And the main issue with them is the battery, because just like with a lot of things, there's a certain amount of times it can discharge and recharge and this sort of thing. So we're going to find out very shortly in the next sort of 5-10 years how these cars are going to last when we're getting up to even 200,000 miles. But the cool thing for the people buying it new, or at least just a couple of years old, is this car comes with an 8-year or 99,000 mile battery warranty, and that's some very good insurance if you want to invest in a car like this, because you know that any issues, it is going to be covered. Obviously, when you get to sort of 6-7 years old, buying it on the used market, you're going to have to sort of think about that. But that's already been an issue for a lot of hybrid cars, such as in Lexus. Those have been an issue on the used market for a little bit of a while now. So I think most consumers would be fairly comfortable with that. But at least from buying this new, I'd say that's a pretty good positive for it. So this car is actually branded as an e-Golf, and when you sort of search for information about it, it actually is often actually on a different category to the normal Golf. So they have sort of tried to separate it a little bit in that respect, but comparing it exactly to the same Golf with the same generation, at least for me, I can't exactly see the main differences between it. I actually find that the electric cars are so much easier to drive, a lot easier than just your standard automatic as well. And I like how the sort of the power band is with the, or the torque band I should say, is with them. So if you're someone who just wants a Golf, especially considering this has no road tax and that sort of thing, I don't see why you'd go for a normal petrol or diesel Golf over this. Your only limiting factor really is the range, but if you're not too bothered about that, or you don't do too many miles every day or whatever, I would recommend this. It's really come across well from my point of view, and this is the type of car that I think is really going to pick up fairly shortly, especially if the range can be increased in them, because overall I would say this is a much nicer, much easier car to drive than a standard petrol or diesel car. Obviously, if there's a hybrid involved, maybe that would be a little bit better in some situations, but if you're driving around town, I would definitely choose this over the combustion engine equivalent. At the end of the day, this car is still just a Golf, but Golfs are such a good car to get yourself around, so there's no sort of worries on that side of it. Yes, maybe it would be nice to have a saloon or something like that, but the hatchbacks, absolutely fine. VW did a really good job with this car. Overall, I really like electric cars. Driven a couple now, and I just really like how they drive, and I think you certainly will as well. But there are a couple of things to consider. Obviously, first of all, straight away, the range is an issue compared to obviously a petrol or diesel equivalent. You can only get around 120 to 140 miles maximum out of this car. So with that, you do have to consider, is it worth the premium? Because the e-Golf is somewhere in the region of, on the used market, of about £6,000 to £7,000 more expensive than a normal equivalent. I have said that this is better, but it's not worth the extra £6 or £7 grand, in my opinion, to the petrol or diesel yet. But the issue is, if no one is going to be trying EVs, they're not going to be there in 5 years' time. But I think for those people who want to be a little bit adventurous, try something different, you should go out and try one of these cars. However, you do have to realise you are paying the premium for the less range. Now, obviously, if you wanted to go, loads of money and go on like a Tesla Model S that's worth double this or more on the used market, then obviously you know what you're paying for. But with this, it's supposed to be that cheaper alternative. It's supposed to be something that's a bit more for everyone, but I don't know if it's quite there, but I do think it will be. You do have to consider that extra cost and what you're actually going to get from that. But as I mentioned, if no one tries it now, it's not going to be there in 5 years' time. So for those of you who want to go and try it, I'd certainly advise that you do, because these are going to be king in 5-10 years' time. And then before we know it, in 15-20 years' time, half the population is going to be on electric cars. So you do have to prepare yourself for that. And it's one of those things where you don't really want to get behind the curve on it necessarily. So I do think for those of you who have a little bit extra money to play with, that want to try something, maybe electric, something a bit different, then this is certainly a very good option. So that ends our day with the e-Golf. It's been an awesome opportunity. Really nice to experience something different actually. We often do a lot of sort of the more budget stuff, a lot of the more cheaper stuff, but this has been an amazing drive, really enjoyed it. And if you do like this car, then you can check it out at Harrington's of Fulham, and also other cars like this as well. If you enjoy our channel, do give us a like and subscribe, but until the next video, we'll see you soon.